Oh, something like that is very sad because it's all negative. It's wrong. I think that's life, to want to grow and become more.
For years, they called him Wacko Jacko. The tabloids ran wild. The rumors never stopped. And the media assumed Michael Jackson would never fight back. So when one interviewer pushed too far on live TV, convinced he had the most famous man in the world cornered, Michael didn't panic, didn't storm off, and didn't break. He did something far worse to that interviewer. He humiliated him completely. The child who changed music. In many ways, it seemed like Michael Jackson was destined for the stage, but his journey didn't begin under bright lights or in sold-out arenas. When he was born in 1958, his parents were still living the life of an ordinary working-class family. Music was a passion in the Jackson household, but fame was still a distant dream. That dream began to take shape not long after Michael's birth. His father, Joe Jackson, started putting together a musical group featuring Michael's older brothers, Jackie, Tito, and Jermaine. The group was originally known as the Jackson Brothers, and at first, young Michael was little more than a supporting member, playing percussion instruments like the tambourine and congas. Everything changed the moment the family heard him sing. It quickly became clear that the youngest member possessed something special. Michael was moved to the front of the group, and the band evolved into what the world would eventually know as the Jackson 5. Today, the Jackson 5 are remembered for timeless hits and global success. But before the fame arrived, they were a hard-working touring act, constantly on the road. Even before Michael reached the age of 10, the group was traveling across the United States, performing anywhere they could get booked. Some nights they played school dances. Other nights they found themselves on stages in late-night clubs and cocktail lounges, occasionally performing before audiences far older than Michael himself. As the group's popularity grew, so did the pressure. Behind the scenes, rehearsals were often intense. Joe Jackson demanded perfection from his sons, and Michael later recalled how his father would sit and watch practices with a belt nearby, waiting for mistakes. The environment was harsh, and Michael would later speak openly about the physical and emotional abuse he endured. Yet he also acknowledged that those demanding standards helped shape him into an extraordinarily disciplined performer. By 1970, the hard work was paying off. The Jackson 5 scored their first #1 hit with I Want You Back, launching a remarkable run of chart-topping success. The group became one of the biggest acts in America, transforming the Jackson family's fortunes almost overnight. At the center of it all was Michael. As he entered his teenage years, he was no longer simply part of the group. He was becoming its undeniable star. While continuing to perform with his brothers, he also began releasing solo material, exploring opportunities beyond the family act. For years, he balanced two careers at once. He remained committed to the Jackson 5, later known as the Jacksons, while simultaneously building a solo identity. During that time, he pushed himself relentlessly, sharpening his dancing skills, developing his songwriting, and searching for ways to grow beyond being just a singer. The talent was undeniable, but the path forward was far from smooth. In 1978, Michael stepped away from home and moved to New York to star as the Scarecrow in The Wiz. It was a role he had dreamed of playing, and the project represented an exciting new chapter. Unfortunately, the film proved to be a major disappointment. Critics were harsh, audiences stayed away, and the movie struggled at the box office. For many performers, that kind of setback might have been devastating. Michael responded by throwing himself back into music. The result was Off the Wall, a hugely successful album that established him as a major solo artist. Yet despite its success, Michael wasn't satisfied. Like his father before him, he carried a powerful perfectionist streak. He believed the album deserved even greater recognition and was disappointed when it failed to win the Grammy Award for Record of the Year. Rather than discouraging him, the setback fueled his ambition. He became determined to create an album so extraordinary that it would be impossible to ignore. As his professional independence grew, however, so did his personal struggles. Away from his family and increasingly isolated by fame, Michael often found himself battling loneliness. He later admitted that he spent many nights feeling completely alone, longing for genuine friendships and normal human connections. Still, he remained focused on his goal. He envisioned creating an album where every track felt like a hit. Every song had to matter. Every moment had to be memorable. That vision became Thriller. Released in 1982, the album exceeded even the most ambitious expectations. It became a cultural phenomenon, eventually earning its place as the best-selling album in music history. Even then, Michael refused to slow down. By 1983, sales were beginning to level off, something most artists would have happily accepted after already achieving enormous success. Michael saw it differently. He wanted to keep the momentum going. So he pushed for another music video. His record label saw little need for it, believing Thriller was already performing exceptionally well. Michael disagreed. Determined to make it happen, he worked directly with MTV to help bring the project to life. The result was Thriller. More than a music video, it became a cultural event. Its cinematic storytelling, groundbreaking production, and unforgettable imagery captivated audiences worldwide and reignited interest in the album on a massive scale. Yet even that triumph came with challenges. Director John Landis later recalled an incident during filming when Joe Jackson visited the set. Michael reportedly wanted him gone. When Joe refused to leave, authorities were eventually called to remove him. At the same time, Michael was facing pressure from another direction. Raised as a Jehovah's Witness by his mother, Katherine Jackson, he became deeply concerned when church leaders objected to the horror themes featured in Thriller. They warned that the video's imagery conflicted with their beliefs, leaving Michael worried about the possibility of being expelled from the faith. The situation troubled him so much that he briefly considered abandoning the project altogether. Just a quick second before we continue. You know that feeling. Someone's name is right there. You know it, but you can't reach it. That specific experience has a biological explanation that researchers only recently. It's not a memory problem, it's a clearance problem. And the difference matters enormously. Go to brainresearchreport.com, or it's in the description below. Once you understand what's actually happening, it gives you something real to work with. Back to the video. Eventually, a compromise was reached. A disclaimer was added at the beginning of the video, clarifying that its content did not reflect his personal beliefs. With that issue resolved, the video was released and became one of the defining achievements of his career. Around the same period, Michael appeared on the television special Motown 25, Yesterday, Today, Forever. He agreed to participate on one condition: he wanted a solo performance. What followed became one of the most iconic moments in entertainment history. Performing Billie Jean, Michael unveiled a dance move that would become forever linked to his name: the moonwalk. Variations of the move had existed among street dancers for years, but Michael's performance introduced it to a global audience. In a matter of seconds, it became part of pop culture history. Michael's most disturbing inspiration. For millions of fans, Billie Jean is simply one of Michael Jackson's greatest songs. Its unforgettable beat, iconic bass line, and legendary performance have made it a permanent part of pop culture. But behind the music lies a story that was far more unsettling than most people ever realized. For years, Michael suggested that the song was inspired by the groupies his brothers encountered during their days with the Jackson 5. Later accounts, however, revealed that the inspiration may have come from a disturbing experience much closer to home. In the early 1980s, Michael reportedly began receiving letters from a woman who insisted that he was the father of one of her twin children. At first, he ignored the claims, assuming they would eventually stop. Instead, the letters kept coming. The woman became increasingly persistent, repeatedly demanding his attention and urging him to acknowledge the child she claimed was his. Over time, the situation began to weigh heavily on Michael. According to those close to him, the letters became so unsettling that they started affecting his peace of mind and even his sleep. Then the situation took an even darker turn. One day, Michael reportedly received a package containing a photograph of the woman, a firearm, and a deeply troubling letter. In it, she allegedly instructed him to take his own life at a specific time. She claimed that she planned to kill her child, and then herself at that exact moment, so they could all enter the next life together. It was the kind of experience that would shake anyone. Later reports claimed that Michael responded to the bizarre situation in an unusual way. According to some accounts, he framed the woman's photograph and displayed it in the family home. Eventually, the woman was reportedly admitted to a psychiatric facility for treatment. The entire ordeal left a lasting impression on Michael and is often cited as one of the inspirations behind Billie Jean. As strange and disturbing as that chapter was, it was only one of many challenges he was facing. By the mid-1980s, Michael Jackson had become one of the most famous entertainers in the world. The pressure that came with that level of fame was enormous, but behind the scenes he was also dealing with serious health problems. In 1984, doctors diagnosed him with lupus, an autoimmune disease that can cause painful skin lesions and a range of other complications. It finally provided an explanation for some of the physical struggles he had been quietly enduring. Unfortunately, another major health crisis was waiting just around the corner. That same year, Michael agreed to film a Pepsi commercial featuring Billie Jean. What should have been a routine production quickly turned into a nightmare. During filming, a pyrotechnic effect malfunctioned and exploded earlier than intended. Sparks ignited Michael's hair, leaving him with painful burns to his scalp. The injuries were severe enough to require hospitalization, and he ultimately underwent multiple medical procedures to help treat the damage and reduce the appearance of the scars. The accident led to a legal settlement with Pepsi, but Michael chose not to keep the money. Instead, he donated the entire $1.5 million settlement to a California hospital, helping establish what became known as the Michael Jackson Burn Center. Even after becoming the biggest solo star in music, Michael still found himself tied to his family's legacy. In 1984, he reunited with his brothers for the Victory Tour. On paper, it should have been a triumphant celebration. Instead, it quickly became one of the most controversial periods of his career. Problems began before the tour even started. A complicated ticketing system required fans to purchase tickets through a lottery process using postal money orders. To make matters worse, tickets had to be purchased in blocks of 4, creating a significant financial burden for many fans. Michael reportedly opposed the plan from the beginning. He believed it would alienate the very people who had supported him throughout his career. Despite his objections, the system moved forward. The backlash was immediate. Fans flooded him with letters expressing their frustration. Among them was one from an 11-year-old girl named LaDonna Jones, who explained that she had spent months saving money in hopes of seeing him perform, only to discover that the ticket requirements placed the experience completely out of reach. The letter deeply affected him. Determined to make things right, Michael held a press conference and announced changes to the ticketing system. He also pledged to donate his personal earnings from the tour to charity. As for LaDonna, he personally invited her to attend a show in Dallas as a special guest. But while the ticket controversy eventually faded, tensions within the Jackson family continued to grow. Michael increasingly distanced himself from the group. He often traveled separately, flying on his own private jet while his brothers traveled together. Even when they shared transportation, differences in lifestyle and personality created friction. Communication became so strained that lawyers frequently acted as intermediaries between Michael and his brothers. Meanwhile, the tour itself was becoming more expensive than expected. Costs continued to rise, profits shrank, and disagreements multiplied. Matters only worsened when promoter Don King publicly criticized Michael for his relationship with the family. The comments reportedly hurt him deeply. Then, on the final night of the tour, Michael made a decision that stunned everyone. Standing before thousands of fans, he announced that it would be the last time he would perform with his brothers. The audience was shocked. Even more surprising, the Jacksons themselves had no idea he was about to say it. By the mid-1980s, Michael's career had reached heights few entertainers had ever experienced. Yet, success brought a new set of challenges. Every move he made became front-page news, and public fascination with him was growing more intense by the day. Around this time, many people began noticing changes in his appearance. His skin appeared progressively lighter, leading to widespread speculation and endless tabloid headlines. The reality was far different from the rumors. In 1986, Michael was diagnosed with vitiligo, a condition that causes patches of skin to lose their pigment. To create a more even appearance, he relied heavily on makeup and cosmetic treatments. Under bright lights and camera flashes, this often made his complexion appear even lighter. But the truth rarely stopped the tabloids. Rumors followed him everywhere. Some publications claimed he slept in a hyperbaric oxygen chamber to slow the aging process. Others suggested he was taking hormones to preserve his voice. Stories circulated about his friendship with Elizabeth Taylor, with tabloids inventing increasingly outrageous narratives about their relationship. The more famous he became, the stranger the stories grew. At times, Michael's own eccentric behavior added fuel to the speculation. He purchased a chimpanzee named Bubbles, who accompanied him on various trips and public appearances. Reports also surfaced claiming he wanted to acquire the remains of Joseph Merrick, though the stories were heavily disputed. As bizarre headlines piled up, the media coined a nickname that Michael deeply disliked: Wacko Jacko. The label followed him for years, turning him into a target for ridicule and misunderstanding. Yet despite the constant scrutiny, public interest in his music never faded. Fans eagerly awaited his next album. When Bad finally arrived after a 5-year gap, it exceeded expectations. The album produced an unprecedented run of 5 #1 singles and became another worldwide phenomenon. A new partnership with Pepsi helped support an enormous global tour that stretched on for nearly 2 years. It was during this period that Michael received the title that would define the rest of his career: the King of Pop. From the outside, it seemed as though he had everything: wealth, fame, success, and worldwide admiration. But before long, his name would return to the headlines for reasons far more troubling than music. The moment everything fell apart. For decades, Michael Jackson's life had seemed almost larger than reality itself. He was the biggest star on the planet, a performer whose music reached every corner of the globe. But in August 1993, his story entered a far darker and far more complicated chapter. That summer, a man named Evan Chandler accused Jackson of having an inappropriate relationship with his 13-year-old son, Jordan Chandler. There was no dispute that Michael knew the boy. Jordan had spent considerable time at Neverland Ranch and was among the many young people who had formed friendships with the singer. But Evan Chandler became convinced that something inappropriate had occurred. He approached his former wife, June, who had custody of Jordan, and shared his concerns. At first, she dismissed them. Over time, however, her position changed. The family sought the opinion of a psychiatrist who concluded there was enough cause for concern to warrant further scrutiny. Yet, instead of immediately involving law enforcement, the matter initially remained behind closed doors as attorneys entered discussions with Jackson's representatives. When those negotiations failed to produce an agreement both sides could accept, everything changed. In late August 1993, the Chandlers went to the police, triggering one of the most intensive investigations of Michael Jackson's life. Authorities searched Neverland Ranch extensively. Investigators interviewed dozens of children who had spent time around Jackson. They questioned former employees and associates, attempting to build a complete picture of what had occurred. Among those interviewed was a limousine driver who claimed he had frequently driven Jackson to the Chandler residence during the period in question. At the same time, investigators began examining allegations that Evan Chandler himself may have been seeking financial gain from the situation. Recorded conversations surfaced in which Chandler appeared to discuss the impact the allegations could have on Jackson's career. Authorities also learned that he was carrying significant gambling debts. As public attention intensified, the case became a media sensation. Then came a development that would shape public opinion for years. Jackson's legal team and the Chandler family reached a civil settlement reportedly worth around $25 million. To many observers, the payment appeared to be an admission of guilt. However, those involved later argued that the situation was far more complicated. According to later accounts, Jackson's insurance company played a major role in pushing for the settlement, believing it was the most practical way to limit financial risk. Years afterward, some members of Jackson's legal team expressed regret about the decision, arguing that the settlement created a public perception that proved impossible to overcome. Whatever the reasoning, the consequences were significant. Without Jordan Chandler's participation, prosecutors lost a key witness. Ultimately, no criminal charges were filed in connection with the 1993 allegations. Legally, the case came to an end. Publicly, it was only the beginning. The accusations sent shockwaves through the Jackson family. One of the most surprising reactions came from Michael's sister, LaToya Jackson, who publicly criticized both her brother and other family members. She suggested that relatives had ignored troubling behavior and remained silent for years. Her claims sparked intense controversy. The family strongly denied her allegations, insisting she was wrong. Yet the public debate only grew louder as additional claims and counterclaims surfaced in newspapers and television reports. Meanwhile, the emotional toll on Michael was becoming increasingly visible. Friends and associates described a man struggling under extraordinary pressure. He reportedly lost weight rapidly, suffered severe stress, and experienced serious health issues that forced him to cancel tour dates and withdraw from public appearances. Then, in a startling revelation, Michael disclosed another battle he had been fighting privately. He admitted he had developed a dependency on prescription painkillers. The addiction traced back years earlier to the 1984 Pepsi commercial accident that left him with severe burns. But according to those close to him, the stress surrounding the allegations had dramatically worsened the problem. By late 1993, the situation had become alarming. While traveling overseas with close friend Elizabeth Taylor, Michael's condition reportedly deteriorated to the point that immediate treatment became necessary. He entered rehabilitation in an attempt to overcome his dependency and regain control of his health. It was a difficult period, and despite treatment, the struggle with prescription medication would continue to follow him for the rest of his life. Although Jackson consistently denied the allegations against him, the damage to his public image was substantial. Corporate partnerships became harder to secure, industry support cooled, and many opportunities disappeared. Yet even amid the controversy, life continued moving forward. In 1994, Michael surprised the world by marrying Lisa Marie Presley. The relationship immediately became tabloid gold. Critics questioned the timing, wondering whether the marriage was genuine or simply an attempt to shift attention away from the allegations. The couple insisted their relationship was real, but public skepticism remained intense. 2 years later, the marriage ended in divorce. Afterward, Presley spoke publicly about their relationship, describing Michael as deeply vulnerable during some of the most difficult periods of his life. According to her, they spent countless hours talking as he struggled with stress, addiction, and the overwhelming pressure surrounding his career. While his personal life remained turbulent, his professional career continued to produce major successes. In 1995, he released History, a project that combined greatest hits with new material. The album performed strongly worldwide, but controversy once again followed close behind. Critics challenged lyrics in one of the album's singles, forcing revisions before later releases. Then Michael surprised the public again. While touring, he married Debbie Rowe, a nurse who had worked for his dermatologist. At the time of the marriage, she was already pregnant with their first child. The relationship puzzled many observers, but those close to Jackson said he had long dreamed of becoming a father. Together, they had 2 children, Prince Jackson and Paris Jackson. The marriage eventually ended in 1999, with Jackson receiving primary custody of the children. A few years later, he expanded his family once more through surrogacy, welcoming a 3rd child, Prince Michael Jackson II. But even moments of joy often became controversy. In 2002, footage emerged showing Jackson briefly holding his infant son over a hotel balcony in Berlin while greeting fans below. The images immediately sparked outrage around the world. Michael later apologized, describing the incident as a serious mistake. Then came another turning point. In 2003, a documentary titled Living with Michael Jackson offered viewers an unprecedented look into his private life. Throughout the program, Jackson defended aspects of his lifestyle that many people already found unusual. Among the most controversial moments were comments regarding children staying at Neverland Ranch. The backlash was immediate. Jackson accused filmmaker Martin Bashir of presenting events unfairly, and later released additional footage intended to provide greater context. But by then, public scrutiny had reached another fever pitch. Soon, a new investigation began. One of the documentary's subjects, a young cancer survivor named Gavin Arvizo, had initially spoken positively about Jackson's support. Later, however, Gavin accused him of misconduct. Members of the Arvizo family also made additional claims regarding their treatment at Neverland Ranch. Authorities launched a criminal investigation, and Jackson was arrested. The trial that followed became one of the most closely watched celebrity court cases in modern history. For months, jurors heard testimony from hundreds of witnesses. Prosecutors argued that Jackson had abused his position and influence. Defense attorneys challenged the credibility of the accusations and questioned the motivations of several witnesses. The proceedings dominated headlines around the world. In the end, the jury found Michael Jackson not guilty on all counts. Legally, he had won. But the trial left deep scars on his reputation and finances. The years that followed were difficult. Neverland Ranch faced mounting problems. Financial pressures increased. legal costs continued to pile up. At one point, Jackson was forced to sell portions of valuable music assets to help stabilize his finances. For a man who had once seemed untouchable, the decline was striking. After the trial, he largely withdrew from public life. Though he remained active creatively, he spent much of his time out of the spotlight. Then, in 2009, he announced what was supposed to be one final triumph. The concert series, This Is It, was promoted as a spectacular farewell. Fans around the world rushed to secure tickets, and anticipation reached extraordinary levels. Michael threw himself into preparations. Rehearsals were demanding. Expectations were enormous. The comeback appeared to be taking shape, but he would never make it to opening night. On June 25, 2009, emergency responders received a call reporting that Michael Jackson was suffering a medical crisis at his Los Angeles home. Paramedics arrived within minutes. They found him unresponsive and not breathing. Despite desperate efforts to revive him during transport and at the hospital, doctors were unable to save him. That afternoon, Michael Jackson was pronounced dead at the age of 50. The news sent shockwaves across the globe. Fans gathered outside hospitals, television stations interrupted regular programming, and millions struggled to process the loss of a man whose music had defined generations. The autopsy later revealed that acute intoxication from prescription drugs, including the anesthetic propofol, had caused the cardiac arrest that ended his life. Attention quickly turned to his personal physician, Conrad Murray. Investigators determined that Murray had administered medications intended to help Jackson sleep. Following a lengthy investigation and highly publicized trial, he was convicted of involuntary manslaughter and sentenced to prison. With that verdict, one of the most extraordinary stories in entertainment history reached its final chapter. When Michael Jackson humiliated a disrespectful interviewer on live TV. It was the evening of February 10, 1993, and millions of viewers across America were glued to their televisions. At exactly 9:30 p.m., one of the most anticipated interviews in television history was about to begin. The special, Michael Jackson Talks, to Oprah, wasn't just another celebrity interview. It marked Michael Jackson's first televised interview in more than 14 years. For audiences around the world, it promised something they had rarely seen before: an unfiltered look into the life of the most famous entertainer on the planet. The excitement surrounding the event was enormous. For months, Oprah Winfrey had struggled to secure the interview. Michael was busy traveling across the globe during the first leg of his dangerous tour and remained notoriously private. While he stayed silent, however, the tabloid press filled that silence with endless speculation. By the early 1990s, stories about Michael's appearance dominated headlines. His skin had become noticeably lighter, and his facial features had changed over the years. Since he rarely addressed these topics publicly, tabloids created their own explanations. Some publications claimed he was addicted to plastic surgery. Others accused him of rejecting his racial identity. The rumors became increasingly outrageous, and they seemed to grow more extreme with every passing month. Michael fought back when he could. He filed lawsuits against false reports and issued statements condemning the rumors. But none of it seemed to slow the constant wave of speculation. Eventually, he came to a difficult realization. The image the media had created around him was beginning to overshadow his music. For years, tabloids had built the bizarre Wacko Jacko persona, and by remaining largely silent, Michael felt he had allowed that caricature to take on a life of its own. By 1993, he had already tried several ways to tell his side of the story. He held press conferences, released public statements, and even published an autobiography. Yet the rumors continued. If he wanted people to hear directly from him, he would have to do something bigger. Encouraged by his close friend Elizabeth Taylor, Michael decided to grant a major interview and address the public himself. Rather than choosing a traditional television journalist, he reached out directly to Oprah Winfrey. According to Oprah, she was stunned when he personally called her. Michael had other options. He could have sat down with any number of high-profile interviewers, but he wanted an environment where he felt comfortable enough to speak openly. He wasn't interested in a cold television studio or an aggressive interrogation. If he was finally going to share his thoughts with the world, he wanted to do it on his own terms. The interview would take place at Neverland Ranch in California. It would be broadcast live, ensuring that his words couldn't be edited or taken out of context. And it would be conducted by someone he trusted to listen rather than simply provoke headlines. Once the arrangements were finalized, anticipation reached a fever pitch. One issue, in particular, overshadowed everything else: Michael's appearance. By then, public fascination with his changing skin tone had become relentless. As Oprah later recalled, people watched him grow lighter year after year, and most had no idea why it was happening. Yet Oprah said that seeing him in person painted a very different picture than the one portrayed in magazines and tabloids. She described his skin as having almost no visible pigmentation. According to her observations, the loss of color was so extensive that the veins beneath his skin were clearly visible. Rather than looking like someone intentionally changing his appearance, he appeared to be someone dealing with a serious medical condition. That led to one of the interview's most memorable moments. For the first time before a global audience, Michael revealed that he suffered from vitiligo, a skin disorder that causes patches of skin to lose their pigmentation. The topic clearly struck a nerve. He explained that the condition was something entirely beyond his control and expressed frustration at accusations that he was trying to change who he was. For years, people had treated the issue as a choice rather than a medical reality, and it was obvious that the constant speculation had deeply affected him. Looking back later, Oprah noted that the subject made him noticeably defensive. At the same time, she understood why. In 1993, public awareness of vitiligo was extremely limited, and many people simply didn't understand what the condition was or how it affected someone's appearance. The discussion naturally led into another subject that had fueled years of headlines: plastic surgery. Compared to the young performer audiences remembered from the Jackson 5, Michael looked dramatically different. Rumors about cosmetic procedures had become a permanent fixture of tabloid coverage. When Oprah asked about it, Michael acknowledged having undergone surgery on his nose, but insisted that many of the stories circulating about him were exaggerated. He denied claims involving several other facial procedures that had been widely reported over the years. Yet even while defending himself, he revealed something deeply personal. Despite being admired by millions, Michael admitted that he struggled with his own appearance and often felt dissatisfied with what he saw when he looked in the mirror. It was a rare glimpse into the insecurities hiding behind one of the most famous faces in the world. Then the interview took an even more personal turn. At one point, Oprah asked an intensely private question about Michael's romantic life, a question she herself later acknowledged was highly intrusive. Michael chose not to answer directly. Instead, he calmly explained that certain aspects of a person's life should remain private. He described himself as old-fashioned when it came to those matters and made it clear that he believed some subjects simply didn't belong in public conversation. The response reflected something viewers saw repeatedly throughout the interview: